Hi, this is Allison Gillen, and I am here tonight to present my presentation on the nonfiction novels that we chose for the week 2 block. And for my novels, I chose they could both be called biographies or historical texts, or a little bit of both. They kind of encompassed a little bit of both. And for my first selection, I chose The Family Romanov, Murder, Rebellion, and the Fall of Imperial Russia by Candace Fleming. I had read a similar book back in, I guess it was the end of high school, maybe beginning of college. It was titled Nicholas and Alexandra, and I do not remember who wrote it, but it was a very hefty book. It was about this thick. It was a good book. I enjoyed it as an English major in college, or a literature major, and also with a history minor. It really spoke to me. I enjoyed both the literature of it and the historical aspect of it. The family Romanov, they are the last imperial family in Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution, in which they lost their lives. They were murdered by the Bolsheviks to get them out of the way so that there would never be any threat of another imperial Russia. There are a lot of dichotomies in this book. Most of the story is about the Romanovs, but then there's little excerpts in the book that tell the story from the point of view of the peasants, the people that the Romanovs claim to love, and Tsar Nicholas claimed to be the father of. They were not very fatherly or motherly-like to the peasants. They had some really strange ideas that these peasants living in these shacks in rags, starving, were just kicking it up out in the country, having the best times of their lives, with rosy cheeks, I believe the quote was, and shiny white teeth. Unfortunately, this was completely not the case. The peasants, again, like I said, they were starving. There was a high child mortality rate. There was disease, severe hunger, and a lack of land to even plant anything on. So the people became, the peasants became quite jealous and covetous of the nobleman's land and wanted it for themselves so they could feed themselves and their family. There is a quote, or a couple of quotes in this book, that really kind of bring this whole point to home and what influenced the outcome for this family. Their lack of understanding, their lack of caring, their willingness to hold on to tradition, and how it's been done 1,000 years, created their downfall. I hate to see anyone murdered. However, the people of the revolution, the Soviets, believed that that was the only way to ensure that they would not rear their ugly heads, and to also keep all the other imperialists away from Russia, those who had been exiled or who fled. This is a line on page 39. It's under a little subheading called A New Baby. And the first 4 children that Nicholas and Alexandra had were all girls. And it says in the book that when a boy or an heir was born in Russia, a cannon would boom for 301 times. And if it was a girl, it'd be 101. So on 4 different occasions, the cannons boomed 101 times, which was very depressing to Alexandra because that was her job to deliver an heir. But for Nicholas, he enjoyed all of his children, the girls, Olga, Marie, Tatiana, Anastasia, and then their only son and youngest child, Alexei. But this quote is actually from when Tatiana was born. It said, the only person who did not seem discouraged was Nicholas. In his diary that night he wrote, "The second bright day in our life, the Lord blessed us with a daughter, Tatiana." Marveling at her fuzz of chestnut hair and large gray eyes, he was astonished by how much she looked like her mother. Now, the very next page, there is one of these little subsections here. It's kind of in grayscale. And this is called Lullabies for Peasant Babies. And just to kind of show where these people were and the order of things that they considered important. This lullaby, I'll just read it to you. "Hush, hush, hush-a-bye, my baby. A man lives at the end of the village. He's neither poor nor rich. He has many children. They sit on a bench and eat straw. I'll make you suffer even more. I won't give you anything to eat. I won't make a bed for you." So for the Romanov children, they grew up in the best of everything, the best homes, the best clothes, the best educators. And for these peasants, their mothers are telling them in this lullaby that just by being born, they will suffer so much more than ever should happen to them, just from strictly being born. There isn't enough food to eat. A lot of instances, they were mixing straw and clay with their food to make it last even longer. So, for young adults, again, I would recommend this book for adolescents of maybe 9th grade, maybe 8th grade, depending on your students, but 9th grade, 9th or 10th, this would probably be a really good book for them. And again, tying in the historical aspect of it with the biographical aspect of this book really makes it interesting, and it kind of came alive for me, and I would hope it would do that for our students. The next book that I read is called Fatal Fever, Tracking Down Typhoid Mary. There's the cover of it here. Again, I'm going to speak about this book later on in one of our other presentations for tonight. So, this book it says Tracking Down Typhoid Mary. I had heard of Typhoid Mary. I was unsure of her background. I never really learned much about her. You just heard always, Typhoid Mary and the lady that spread typhoid everywhere. But actually, what the book is about is the search for Mary Mallon. She was a carrier of Salmonella typhi, which is the bacteria that causes typhoid fever. And unbeknownst to her, she was actually infecting people because she was a carrier through apparently not washing her hands enough after defecating. Also mixed with, there was a lot of uncleanliness in early 20th century New York City. In other areas of New York and upstate New York around Ithaca, there had been an outbreak of typhoid. Several students died, and many students fled the school or left the school and went home to be tended to by their parents. But they did not have a lot of sewage systems or water filtration systems. And actually, because of typhus or typhoid and the work of George Soper, who is one of the main characters in this book, he actually is the one that figured out that it was Mary Mallon that was making people sick. So George Soper was a sanitation engineer. He was well known and well respected and very well paid. He's the one that really made sure that cities and towns understood that the way that they were handling raw sewage, and that with using milk that wasn't pasteurized and water that wasn't filtered, they were creating the conditions perfect for Salmonella typhi. Mary Mallon, when she was caught, she was an Irish immigrant, so she had a little bit of feisty in her, and she basically had a few violent instances with the health department, George Soper and Josephine Baker from the health department, And so she was not very pleased, to say the least, that these people were coming after her. She firmly, till the day she died, believed that she had not infected anyone. The way she was infecting people, she was actually a cook for quite a few well-to-do families. And George Soper tracked down illnesses, and the common factor between all of these different families was Mary Mallon. Once they caught her, they took her to a hospital and then to an island called North Brother Island. And if you're curious, the island still exists now. It's in ruins. It's not inhabited by anyone except for, I think it's a bird sanctuary now. But if you want to go online and kind of look at the island, it's kind of kidney shaped. But that's where they kept Mary Mallon for most of her life. She was freed for several years. She promised not to go back to cooking, and she did. And they recaught her, and she was confined to the island for the rest of her life. But eventually, she became a lab worker at the island. She worked with nurses and doctors and did studies. So it always amazed me that they trusted her to do that. They trusted her to cook meals for them and have meals with them on the island, but yet she couldn't be released out into the public. So just a little aside there that I always thought was kind of strange. And also there were several men that they found that were also carriers. And a couple of them were released and then got caught doing the same things that they had been doing before. One man was he made ice cream, and he used unpasteurized milk. And he was originally caught spreading typhoid that way. And when he was granted a release, it was under the promise that he not go back to making ice cream. And they found him a few years later doing the same thing. And I think they said he paid a fine. And he was set about his merry little way and never heard from him again. So kind of a double standard between the men and the women. But Mary Mallon, she was definitely one of the first people that they tracked down in a very serious way to try to see what was going on with her, how she was carrying this without getting sick herself, and how exactly she was giving this deadly disease to other people. So it's a good book, and it is really a book that is tailored for adolescents. Again, I would say maybe 7th, 8th grade, possibly 9th. There are a lot of interesting pictures in here. I do not like the cover of this book, which I will get to in another video, but just to kind of let you know that. But that is it for tonight, and I look forward to seeing you guys in our next presentation next week. You have a wonderful evening.